Hello there, and welcome back to another one of our reflections for the week after Easter, the weeks after Easter, that lead us into Sunday. So today we're in the old quad of the University of Melbourne with the traditional cloisters in the background. This is the oldest part of the university, and it's perhaps one of the most oldest parts of white settlement here in Parkville. So, why did I choose this particular spot? Well, it's because we're going to read the Acts of the Apostles today, which is the second volume of Luke. His Gospel's the first volume, the Acts of the Apostles is the second. And we pick up the reading today where Peter bravely stands in a public place in Jerusalem, the crossroads where people go to the temple and to the market, where they trade, where they are exchanged. So just as this old university spot is a public place where ideas are exchanged, where learning happens, where life goes on, I thought we'd use that because it's in this setting that Aldo is going to take our reading, where Peter stands firm in a public place of Jerusalem and announces the Lord is risen.
A reading from the Acts of the Apostles. On the day of Pentecost, Peter, standing with the 11, raised his voice and addressed the crowd. People of Judea and all who live in Jerusalem, let this be known to you, and listen to what I say. Jesus of Nazareth, a man attested to you by God with deeds of power, wonders and signs that God did through him among you, as you yourselves know, this man handed over to you according to the definite plan and foreknowledge of God, you crucified and killed by the hands of those outside the law. But God raised him up, having freed him from death, because it was impossible for him to be held in its power. For David says concerning him, I saw the Lord always before me, for he is at my right hand, so that I will not be shaken. Therefore my heart was glad, and my tongue rejoiced. Moreover, my flesh will live in hope. For you will not abandon my soul to Hades, or let your Holy One experience corruption. You have made known to me the ways of life. You will make me full of gladness with your presence. The word of the Lord.
So, the Acts of the Apostles, it's, as I said before, it's written by Luke after his Gospel. It talks about the rise of the early churches and the early Christians, the followers of Jesus. So, a fair bit of the beginning of the Acts of the Apostles is about Peter the leader. But you'll notice if you look into the Acts of the Apostles, it gets more and more to do with Paul and of Paul's missionary journeys out through what today would be Turkey and into Greece, and later, of course, to Rome. So, did you notice that in the reading this morning, it's a very brave, fully confident, enthusiastic, convinced believer in Peter as he talks to the people mixing through this public place. Now remember, Luke wants to emphasize the universality of those who followed the way of Jesus. So he deliberately picks on a whole range of people from various parts of the Roman Empire even across into Africa, northern Africa, that have made their journey through Jerusalem. I suspect that's very deliberate because he's trying to honour the blow-ins, the Gentiles who are now coming to the way of Jesus. So there would have been many more Jewish people in the area, but Luke highlights that surrounding the area where Peter was proclaiming the Lord's resurrection, there were many Gentiles. And it's there that you get a very Jewish nuance. When Moses came down the mountain after receiving the law from his God, he was accompanied by howling winds, clouds, fire, all those sort of dramatic elements. Now, these people are pumped up with a sense that and a conviction the Lord is with them. And so the way that Luke writes it up is to make it Jewish. All those Jewish symbols of Sinai are now present in this public place. They believe that the rising of Jesus from the dead after the horrible crucifixion, the trial and the torture, now the risen Lord is with them. So notice, it's diverse, the crowd, it's very public, and it is 50 days after Passover, and the crowds are in Jerusalem because it's a Jewish festival, the harvest festival, when there's thanksgiving for the fruit and the produce of the land and of their land, where good things work for them with their creative God. And the figure of the Son of God in Jesus, his powerful presence goes with them. Now, it's interesting, we would recognize that, according to Luke, as Pentecost. But there's another way also in the New Testament writings of Pentecost, and that is in John. It's not in a public place, it's in an upstairs room, possibly inferring the room of the Last Supper, and there Jesus quietly comes amongst them. They're all huddled in there, boarded up for fear of the authorities, and he says to them, the very same day that he's risen from the dead, he says to them, "Peace be with you," and he breathes over them. Very Jewish, because it's very much like the book of Genesis, where the Creator God breathes life into the dust of the earth and forms man and woman. So in this creative, quiet, penetrating moment where Jesus is with the 12, we have the sense that he says, "Peace be with you." He breathes over them and says, "Receive now the Holy Spirit." And so what happens here is that in John, Pentecost is soon after the resurrection of Jesus. And it's quiet, it's private in a way. Only those that are there in their small group know what's happening. Very quiet, penetrative in the middle of the night. Whereas Luke takes a very dramatic way where lots of Gentiles are included. It all happens up front, out in the open, and there we have their exhilaration, enthusiasm for a recognition the Spirit of God goes with them, and they will take this message out to the ends of the earth. What I want to do now is just say a little bit about the pastoral nuances there for us. Sometimes we feel a sense that our God is with us in quiet moments, private times, when the whole world is not looking in on us. There's a certain sense of being shut up, being isolated, or if not isolated, being alone, or with just very intimate company of a friend, a partner, a family. And there, what happens is that we say to ourselves, the heart says, our God, the Spirit of our God, is with us. It might be a reconciliation after some dispute in the family circles, or after some hurt that's happened, that these things are quietly resolved, and there's a sense of relief that somehow the Spirit of our God works in this place with these people, and that is Pentecost to John. Now let's go back to Luke, and Luke's presentation's much more popular. All the kids that go for a confirmation all know about Pentecost and Jerusalem and the public place and the tongues of fire and the wind and it says the whole of the city was astir. Well, that's like saying on the day of the grand final here in Melbourne, the whole of the city is astir. Certainly, if you're at the MCG, things are astir, but that comes through the eyes of the footy fans. Just like here, the story comes through the eyes of the followers of Jesus. They're excited, they're prepared to go out and be public about their convictions, about their faith. So the Lord is with them in a very public, almost noisy way, and they feel strong and committed. See, two very different aspects of Pentecost. And it might be a wise thing to consider in the rowdy public ways that the presence of our God is sometimes found, and other times he's found in quiet and very private moments. Let's put that into some prayer, that we may be discerning people who look out to see deeper meanings in life around us. May the Spirit of God come to us quietly. May the Spirit of God come to us quite publicly at times. Lord, accept our temperaments, our own styles of life, because it's really there that your Spirit will come amongst us. Amen. One little public notice today. Father Kevin Dillon, who was in Geelong for quite some years, has now gone out to the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. He set up this lighthouse idea of a lifeboat that he felt that the church wasn't doing enough for the survivors of sexual abuse, often sadly perpetrated by priests and other people of the church. So he set up a very uncomplicated way of looking after people. And so once a year they have a raffle for the lifeboat, for its project, for what it does. Now, I put some information about that on our parish website, where you might be able to get some tickets in the raffle, help out this tremendous pastoral project that is bringing hope and healing to many people. It's very obvious when you open up into the web page, you'll see something like breaking news or recent news. I think it might be under something like that. And if you wish to follow up to get some tickets, that's where you'll get them. Usually they'd sell them outside the church this weekend, but this time round they will be available through the website. Until we meet again, may God be with you.